All right, lads, we just came back from watching the movie of the year, Gavin's favorite movie of the summer season, the summer blockbuster that everyone can't wait to see, Eddington. Joaquin Phoenix's best performance. I mean, it was absolutely spectacular. Gavin, what are your thoughts? Because I know you loved it so much.
Brett's futile attempt at getting me riled up because he wants me to spike out my audio and have a determined freak out like him. I'm going to start this with a really fun anecdote on my walk back to my apartment. This is a really interesting little piece of trivia from before the movie. So we had one of our other friends come and join us to the movie and was having a little bit of difficulty finding the theater. When we get through the movie, the subject is brought up again, and Brett turns around on the street and goes, "Dude, shut up. Who cares? I don't care. It doesn't matter." And I literally turned to Brett.
Dude. I was pissed.
I know you were, but there's a point to this story, so hold on. Stay with me here. And I turned around to Brett and I said, okay, and see, this movie is exactly the reason why we don't need things like this, because all that movie did for its excessively long 2-hour trope of depression and horrible and bad storytelling was drag you through the mud of the worst period that people remember vividly not that long ago and put you in a bad mood to the point where Brett, who's normally not a guy that freaks out that often, at least not in a negative way, because we know he can get a little worked up on this podcast, just a smidge, was just rearing and angry on the street. And for me, that's what describes this movie perfectly. It was an overstuffed, dark look at a really difficult time in the country that's still bleeding through to today and has left us in kind of a state of permanent depression. And instead of approaching any of these topics in a way that could actually lead to a conversation, we picked the most angry, destructive, and implausible way to go about doing it, to wrap you up at the end of the movie with nothing worked out for anybody, everybody died, oh, and here's a quick nude shot of Joaquin after he's been paralyzed, just in case you...
Dude, that was my favorite scene.
Oh my gosh, all right.
Don't talk about that.
Okay, fine. But all in all, this movie was probably when we were leaving the theater, I said it was probably an hour too long. In reality, not over exaggerating, it was at least a half an hour too long. And it's a commentary on a lot of things that are going on today and a lot of not for nothing important topics, but not in a way that you could actually turn around and talk about them in any sort of a positive way, because all it does is blatantly attack both sides ruthlessly, provide no positive commentary in a pathway to actually mend anything, blow everything up, and then go, okay, and that's the movie, get out of the theater. And so, yeah, I did not care for this at all. And I'm really interested to see, because in talking with our special guest who's here with us once again, returning after his debut in 28 years later, Matthew McNamara, back on Fake Cine-Files. We were discussing this a little beforehand, and he said he had some interesting thoughts on the movie. So I'm interested to see what your perspective on it is coming out of it. He saw it a couple of days ago, but what are your thoughts?
For sure. And again, thank you guys for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And this is definitely a movie that once I saw it, I remember texting you guys and going like, there's a lot to unpack in this movie. And I think, Gavin, all the points you make are valid for sure about like the nihilism of the movie, sort of the tonality of the movie. I think in some ways for me, it's what makes it work is that it is sort of nihilistic. It like the way it sort of like lambasts both sides. And like, I know it's, again, we'll talk about this like 5 years after the events that took place on COVID. And, you know, Ari Aster has already shown us some pretty messed up work in some of his other things with Hereditary and Midsommar especially. This is a movie that he sort of wrote to unpack the events of what happened, especially during that time of May 2020 when we were at the height of the pandemic and we were at the height of what was going on here. I don't think he was writing this as like trying to find like a specific like message. And I think that was his goal, was like not to make this a message movie. I think this movie is more of a mirror to what our society was like at that time. And then it's up to us to sort of place ourselves or place our own morality within the message that is not really being communicated in the movie, but like what essentially he's trying to cover in the movie. So I think from that perspective, it's a very interesting piece of work overall. Whether or not you like the movie or not, you can't say that it's not original, and you can't say that it doesn't spark a conversation of some sort.
So let me ask you a quick question there, really quickly. If you were going to take a look at that, because I like that perspective on that a lot, but if you were going to take a look at that and go, okay, so viewing that a lot of the issues that are brought up in the movie are still issues today. I mean, far left-leaning politics, far right-leaning politics, the money and influence that go into it, the lies and persuasion, we can go down the laundry list of things that he put into this movie. But they're all still really currently active today. Do you think that because they're all still currently so active today, that people are going to appropriately ask those questions in their morality? Or do you think that it stands more likely to kind of reinvigorate some of the anger and disruption that was brought about by the introduction of those things that really became a lot more public and prominent during those times?
For sure. I know. I think the big thing, and I actually was thinking about this before, is like it is kind of crazy, even though this all happened 5 years ago, like the after effects of what's still going on in society or what's been ramped up. We always talk about the division between the red states and blue states and all this stuff. And I think it was interesting that Ari Aster set this movie in New Mexico where he grew up, because I think for him, this movie is an amalgamation of like, or this very small town in New Mexico of all places is sort of an amalgamation of what was exactly going on in our society. And like every step of the way, racial tension, social tension, all the things that were going on between the vaxxer, well, not at that point it wasn't vaxxers, but the maskers and the anti-maskers. It's kind of this interesting like bubble of like everything that was going on in the society. And you even see in the movie how like it starts as a national issue and then slowly trickles down into the focus being on Eddington itself. So it's very interesting to me that like in a way it is a period piece because it's from 5 years ago. And again, like it both feels like 5 years ago, but doesn't feel like 5 years ago. But the fact that like we're still like dealing with these issues kind of, I don't know how timely the movie is in that regard, but the fact that we are still dealing with certain themes that are brought up in this movie is still very interesting and makes sense as to why they would go through with this movie and release it to a wide audience.
All right, Gavin, great points. I mean, listen, way to bring us all down. But at the end of the day,
I don't want to be hearing about bringing people down after seeing that movie, okay? That movie brings people down. I'm not doing it.
Hey, it got a 7.1 on IMDb. I mean, that is the same as Midsommar. So to be honest with you, it's a cinematic masterpiece.
Okay,
as
let's
far as
talk
I'm
about
concerned.
that for a second, okay? Because we're going to jump topics really quick. It's later down our list on the list of documents. Midsummer was when it released, and we've talked about it before. Mac, you were here the last time that we did a horror movie. Midsummer is the brightest, most colorful, and maybe one of the most actually horrifying horror movies that I've seen. And when they said Midsummer and horror movie, and I looked at the title and it was this bright picture and somebody wearing a very flowery crown and everything else, I looked at it and I went, well, it's going to be a stupid horror movie. And I went to go see that movie. And even though it's gut-wrenching and horrifying and like there's a lot of commentary that goes on in that one, that's a piece that I still look at as one of the better, more modern horror films to come out to date. When I look at this movie, I don't get that same sense of accomplishment with the storytelling. And I'll spin that into the next true topic here. Brett, how many storylines did you count in this movie? I mean, what, 20?
Okay. All right. Listen, it's all over the place, okay? But the thing I appreciate about the movie the most is that like Mac was talking about, it starts out as a small issue, but then it keeps on ramping up and ramping up. And to be honest, I get it. People might get whatever it is, like they might just get uncomfortable with the movie and walk out of the theater, or you might be locked in and kind of captivated by the story. And I was locked into this movie because I was like, what am I watching right now? I mean, it just kept on ramping up and up and up. And listen, I kind of want to talk about it more like from an actor's perspective, because Joaquin Phoenix, in my opinion, kind of killed it. And he does a lot of weird stuff. Let's just face it. Ever since he's done Her, I feel like he's been like in the wonkiest A24 movies for the past like 5 years. Okay. This, I thought it was one of his better performances. And even though it kind of got wonky at the end there, I was locked in and I was captivated by kind of like the story. But to be fair, you do have a point with the storyline's too much. It's like, what am I watching? We don't really resolve anything. I just watched 2.5 hours of chaos. And I was like, yeah, it could have been cut down by 30 minutes. And then you were like, you know what? I would have rather have a full hour be cut down. And I respect that. But at the same time, I literally had oh my God moments in this film. The action sequences are crazy. They are what I terrify the most in movies. You know, you're sitting there, everything's quiet, and then boom, it happens right in the blink of an eye. And I freak out, and the tension was there for me. And it kind of switches genres. It switches from like kind of this tense, like social commentary to almost like horror style, which I really found like super interesting. But I do get it, you know, where you're coming from, where it's like, this is just too much. It makes everyone angry. Why would you make this like 5 years out and when we're still prevalent with the issue? What are we doing here? But at the same time, we look at a lot of the stuff Ari Aster's made. It's been weird. I'm sorry, Hereditary is one of the weirdest movies I've ever watched in my life. I could not. I was like, who the heck made this? Because you know me, Gavin, I hate horror movies. I despise horror movies. But I was like, you know what? Saw a couple clips. I was like, let me go watch this. Let me go see this Ari Aster guy.
What an interesting film to pick up at random.
I almost literally was done. I was done during that movie. I feel like that's his style. He takes sort of a topic, he takes sort of like a genre, and then he just goes all out with it, which is what I appreciate. So, you know, I'm 50-50. You know, I like certain aspects of this movie, but at the same time, I hear your complaints. Because like I stood up and I just go, the first words that came out of my mouth were, what the heck did I just watch? And sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, Ari Aster, I think, like, sort of revels in the uncomfortable. I think that's sort of a theme you can sort of go across all 4 of his movies. I'm curious, have either of you guys seen Beau is Afraid?
No.
His third movie? That movie is, like, I think that's his first departure from horror. That movie it's longer, but it's also, like, much more, like,
oh my
fantastical.
gosh, it's longer?
No, but, like, it's not, like, it's also uncomfortable to sit through for sure, but like it's a very interesting like movie. Like it's as what we would refer to as like a blank check movie, where, you know, like Ari Aster, he makes Hereditary, makes Midsummer, and he's like, you know what? Let me do something a little bit different. Let me do a 3-hour movie about this guy named Beau. And again, another great Joaquin Phoenix performance, very similar about like family trauma type of stuff, but it goes in a very different direction. Whereas I think Eddington is much more on the realistic side. I mean, for Ari Aster, from what I've seen of his interviews, this is a movie that he essentially wrote during COVID. I think maybe as a way to sort of balance COVID or sort of like deal with what was going on with COVID. And that's why I think it's such like a big ideas movie. It feels like something that like, and he even said in interviews, like, I was all over Twitter, like I was seeing all this stuff happening in real time. And so I do agree that like at certain points, I think Aster like wants to make one of those like bigger movies that we saw maybe from like a Robert Altman type or like Nashville, where it's you're throwing all these different storylines in and you want them to sort of you'll throw in the storylines and then they'll all intersect at the end of the movie and like wrap up nicely with a bow. But I don't think he's also interested in that. I think his idea with like the storylines was like, maybe it doesn't resolve itself. Maybe things are left to left for interpretation or left kind of like behind. And like, again, does it work in some ways? Yes. Does it work in a movie sense? Not always, for sure. But I think, again, as someone who was from New Mexico and someone who did the research, went down, talked to different people who were from that New Mexico area, getting their thoughts on like what was going on during 2020, you can see that research like come to screen with some of the characters that are featured in this movie, a very wide ranging amount of different kinds of characters and archetypes for a small town like that. But I know, look, I admire Ari Aster at this point in his career for taking a big swing like that, because we whether you like it or not, like we do need more of those in film. And I think A24 has done a really good job this year of letting their directors like take those big swings on these projects, because a lot of these movies people talk about whether they like it or not, but it does get a conversation going.
No, I mean, I hear you.
Appreciate art.
Okay, all right. So we're not going to call
okay,
everything
like,
that comes from
not,
A24 art.
He doesn't have to like it. Like he doesn't have to like it. But like I applaud you guys for going to see a movie like this, because not everyone is. Now it did make fairly recent. Like A24 is a different sort of budget standard than everything else. But I think it's admirable to like challenge yourself to see different kinds of movies and different kinds of structures and stories, because I think it makes you more well-rounded as movie-going viewers. So again, respect for the theater.
Not facts.
Well,
I was trying to take a dig at you, Gavin.
No. I know. It's one of those things, and like I'm not opposed to the idea that you leave a story unresolved, but I think that if you're gonna leave it unresolved, then there needs to be a purpose to it. And I think when you get to the end of this one and you look at his wife and you look at the kid who shot the Antifa whatever guy that was, stabbing him in the skull at the end of the movie, and you look at, all of these other characters that he didn't really give great middle stories to, that he didn't give great endings to, that he didn't give great anything to, you look at that and you go, okay, so if we figured out kind of the purpose of what they're being there for, other than just, oh, well, he needed to be there because he had to shoot the guy at the end, or he needed to be there for the simple fact of I needed somebody else for, cannon fodder. Okay, great. But I need it to lead me to some place, in the sense of, the dystopian movies, the zombie movies, there's all sorts of horror movies that kind of leave you with nothing really great happened throughout this entire film. Nothing went right, and I'm not solving anything by the end of it, but the journey had a purpose. And I got to the end of this journey going, okay, this kind of feels like I got pelted by pebbles on a 2-mile walk in the scorching sun, and I still don't have a purpose for it other than I kind of feel like crap, and I'm reminded of a time that wasn't really great. And like you said, I admire him for taking the swing. Hereditary and Midsummer were both movies that I really liked from him, and the discomfort from the movies are not things that I mind. I think that it's a learning process, and we also can be a bit critical of people stepping out into bounds that they've never really approached before. And something like this for him, involving so many characters, is not a particular play that he's had in his book before. So I think it's a good stepping stone to seeing what you did right and seeing what you did wrong. If we're gonna have that many characters, let's make it like Snatch. I want to see the evolvement of all of those characters. I really want to feel a part of everything they're doing, instead of I'm kind of just tossing him here for this moment, and I'm kind of just tossing him here for this moment. Let me be with the characters. Let me get invested in them to a point, because then when stuff happens with them and around them, I care more. But even when we're, sitting outside of the apartment and he's up on the hillside, and Joaquin Phoenix has the sniper scope trained on Pedro Pascal, I'm not totally even thinking about Pedro. I'm mostly thinking about Joaquin. and about his primary storyline and the fallout of every negative decision he's made to get here, and how this domino continues to fall negatively downwards because his story was so primarily focused in on that, and the others were kind of throwing characters that we kept sort of just getting in there. If we'd spent more time with his son, other than being the heckler outside of the vehicle as he's driving through town, and the teenager who's drunk having, social meetings when it's COVID time and you're not supposed to be meeting in large groups, I think we could have had more care when not only did he shoot Pedro, but he shot his son. Okay, well, now I care a lot more. I knew he was going to shoot Pedro. That's fine. We were getting to that point anyway. That's what we were building to. I didn't realize he was going to shoot his son, but as soon as he did, I kind of went, okay, he doesn't have a total lot of reason to do that other than maybe a witness, and we haven't spent enough time with him for this to be a huge, devastating loss for me. I just want to be brought into the story a bit more. But for his first attempt for it, there's also been way, way worse attempts, referencing, as always, as I do this summer, Jurassic World. Shoving too many storylines into one stupid movie for absolutely no reason for the still worst movie of the summer. Awful. And that'll spin us forward to the quality of this movie compared to, let's say, last year's A24 projects. How do you guys think this movie stacks up against some of the other stuff? Warfare was their last kind of social commentary movie, and I really enjoyed that. And it was...
All right, let's just relax.
Relax.
It's not better.
I think they're almost kind of...
It's not better.
Actually, but I think those movies are actually kind of opposites, which I think actually works for A24's breadth of movies, because Warfare isn't really, it's a commentary, but it's more of a visual commentary. It's not telling you this is what's happening, this is the thing. It's no, they're just going into war. This, you're just watching a war scene play out in front of you, and then it's up to you to make the judgment of what are they there for? Is this right? Should they be going through something like this? I think what A24 has been doing this year has been very interesting, because I think I brought it up before of the conversations we're having around these movies, because you've got Warfare, which is, I really like too. I thought it was a terrific theater experience, but not everyone liked Warfare. A lot of people were kind of turned off by it, which I'm again, I'm very interested to see why. Maybe they were looking for more of a traditional war movie where it's you have the character development and the buildup. And Alex Garland wasn't very interested in doing that, especially working with someone who was, a director who was on the front lines there. They just wanted to show you the viscerality of what was going on there. But then you also have...
I like the character development that they did do. It was minor, but
yes,
you follow
minor, but it's very subtle. Very subtle.
It was very subtle, and it was the character development of what war does to people, and the impartiality of... you get to see this young kid come in saying that she wants to be a wartime photographer, and learning the fact that that means that you're not there to pick sides, right or wrongs, or anything else like that, and go from the kid who threw up at the site of a bomb to the kid who is then at the end of the movie photographing her mentor basically as she's getting shot, standing in front of her, saving her from a bullet. And so it's not an overarching character development, but just that right there is still a good character development enough in and of itself that her story is her story, and her mentor's story was her own story. And each of them kind of had their own roles in it. So an interesting and completely different comparison altogether.
Yeah, I think Civil War, that's their highest grossing movie that A24 has had. And again, another Alex Garland project that is kind of similar, where I think you make good points about the movie, but some people again kind of turned off by that movie because it doesn't really have it doesn't say similar to this movie, it doesn't say oh, this guy is right, this guy is wrong. It's very much trying to be as down the middle as possible, which for certain movies can work to your benefit and work to your the opposite way. Because the other two movies that A24 has done so far this year, Bring Her Back, which I really liked, and I thought was and again, that's a tough sit of a movie. It's very daunting, very dark, but doesn't hold back in terms of the graphic nature of it, but also does a really good job of the Philippines have done a really good job between that and Talk to Me about family dynamics, family trauma, but also you start to see things unwind in terms of the details of like why things are going the way that they're going. I thought that was a really good one. And then The Materialist, which I know you guys, I did see.
It looks
I wanted to
stupid.
see it. I wanted to see it,
But that,
Gavin didn't want to see it. I can't believe it.
I get it. Again, you know, I'm very much an advocate of like it's not for me, and I get it if it's not for you. Like I like Celine Song because of her first movie, Past Lives, and this movie like not as good, but like it was a very interesting take on a rom-com that again a lot of people like kind of were a little bit turned off on because A24 is getting more and more of a platform. More and more like general audiences are going to see their movies, which works to their benefit because more people, you know, they're making more money off of their movies, but at the same time, like audiences are going in there expecting to see like your typical rom-com or your typical social commentary movie, and they're getting something very different, which I think again, what as I talked about before, challenging these audiences and like making them sit through some of these like tough watches is, I think, a credit to them because it's taking risks. When so many studios are so risk averse, like my favorite A24 movie and one of my favorite movies of the century is Uncut Gems. And again, I love Uncut Gems, but I understand like how tough of a sit that movie is. But that's the point, the anxiety that you're sitting through. And I sometimes question when people say like, I didn't like Uncut Gems. I'm like, do you not like the experience of Uncut Gems? Because that's the point. Or do you actually not like the movie? Then we can have an actual discussion about the movie. But again, I think A24, like even with this movie, as we talked about with The Big Swing, I respect it.
Yeah, I mean, here's my take. I think A24 is probably what these studios should be striving for. Like, because now everyone, when they go and see an A24 film, they know they're going to get, like, they don't know what they're going into. I didn't know what I was going into to go see Eddington. I didn't even know it was, like, a social commentary on, like, COVID or anything. And I had to sit through there and kind of, like, take it all in and then just dissect the movie and see what it was and then form an opinion on it. And I was split 50-50, and then Gavin hated it, and then Mac, you know, he liked it. So it's like, I like that A24 does. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is like one of my favorite films of all time. I think it's a top 10 film for me, like in the 21st century, when whoever did those New York Times top 10, you know, 21st century movies. But like, at the end of the day, Warfare for me was spectacular this year. This movie was pulverizing, you know, it was all over the place a little bit, but I do like the risks that they take. And there's some things I always take from an A24 film that I like, whether it's the cinematography, like that Joaquin Phoenix, like third act when he's getting chased. You can say whatever you want about the movie, but I'm not going to lie, I was absolutely horrified because when they pan to each corner and they take their time and you really do get like a movie theater experience every time you go see an A24 film in the movies. So I do appreciate that from them. I am pissed that we didn't go see The Materialist, but like at the end of the day, you know, I have to do whatever my podcast partner wants to do. I can't, it's that love-hate relationship. But I'll go see it. I'll do my own review. It's okay. But I felt like I've liked because it almost, like when Midsommar came out, it's almost like I feel like every time someone went to go see an A24 film, they were like comparing it to that, right?
Right, yeah. There's a sort of stigma that goes along with like what A24 is doing now, just because like they've become so popular and they've become such a brand that like there are certain like elements and like, all right, I'm going to probably see this director, this actor, like it's going to be about some sort of like trauma or whatever else. But but A24 is like making sure that like their slate is not just like, they're not rehashing things. Like they're trying to do different things and they're trying different directors, voices, actors. Like, you know, we'll talk about their slate for the rest of the year, but they got some interesting projects coming up too. For some very well-known directors they've already had who are doing new things. And so like if they can continue to do this, because I know like their goal has been kind of to keep the independent spirit of their movies going while also trying to take bigger and bigger projects, I think it sort of ramps them up. Because right now it's like when we're talking about like Oscar conversation, when we're talking about awards conversation, it's like them, it's Neon, who has done a really good job with like a lot of their independent features, and then the studios, like they're kind of falling behind when it comes to this kind of stuff, or they're seeing what A24 and Neon are doing and are trying to like adapt or catch up to them. We saw it in the marketing of Thunderbolts, where they're like trying to make it all about A24 and like who's the cinematographer, Florence Pugh's the star. Like it shows like the impact that they're having on the industry.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
Great point, man. Great point.
You know, I'm always and forever, and you're more than welcome to see The Materialist. My independent review of Megan 2.0 comes out later this week. So, you know, you are welcome to review movies on your own. Megan 2.0 on the docket, ladies and gentlemen. I went to go see it by myself because Brett didn't want to, so here we are.
Nope, didn't want to go see that garbage. My bad.
That garbage. We're talking about The Materialist. That's garbage. Anyway, I'm going to carry on with my actual point.
Rotten Tomatoes, Gavin.
Okay. So again, here's a good example of Brett getting worked up on the podcast, but I'm just going to move on. Yeah, I mean, Warfare was one of my favorite movies that they released this year because working in the medical field, even from a medical standpoint, I mean, I can still remember me and Brett talking during the movie about it and saying, you know, these are the things they've got to be doing. This is, you know, why they didn't do this. This is the post-traumatic stress disorder that they're going to go through. These are, I mean, they're taking real visceral looks at things that are going on in an uncomfortable way. I mean, you know, Warfare, you see a guy's leg blown off and there's no music. There's no extra sound. There's nothing to buffer the uncomfortableness except this guy and his wailing the entire time it's going on. And the fact of the matter is, you know, showing up as an EMT to scenes and somebody's, you know, leg was split open or something like that, that's all you hear in real life, that you're sitting through it. And Civil War was a great commentary that was way less tell you and way more show you and a lot more let you think about it and kind of force you to think about it. Whereas this one was a lot more, I'm literally going to shove this in your face and make you think about it. And I think for me, what would have made this a little bit better is if it just pulled back a little. Not that you've got to pull your punches completely, but if you'd given it just a little more breath to go, hey, I'm encouraging you to think about it instead of I'm going to tortilla challenge slap you across the face with this point and you had better think about it. You're not being given a choice with it. But A24 also does a really good job of making these kinds of projects where you're forced into these situations, and everything except The Materialist has come out to be a really great project. So, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you have to look at it for what it is and not what you want it to be. And, you know, I think you made a good point with Uncut Gems. A lot of people don't like the experience of that movie and not that they don't like the actual movie themselves. And I'm not going to lie, we saw Superman last week. It feeds into a lot of why I don't like the experience of this movie, because in today's day and age, you see people and they're rallying around the idea of hope and moving forward and better and positivity and things like that. And this movie kind of felt like having somebody put your face in the dirt, put their foot on top of you and drag you the whole way. And you're like, okay, so I get why we sometimes need to do that, but oh my gosh, man, can we go back to the guy in tights? He was so much happier.
Yeah, but I think
you know,
the social
good.
commentaries, yeah. I think the social commentary about this movie, and I think we've talked about it, but I definitely it's definitely a key part, especially like that first third of the movie, is like the way that it sort of comments both on like this sort of like hardline conservative thought process on like, don't tread on me type of thing. But it, like more than any movie I've seen, like maybe like since it happened, like the way it kind of goes against this performative liberalism too in the movie is fascinating to me. I think this movie, one of the things I loved about this movie is this might be like the best on-screen representation of like current social media in movies for me. And I know there are other movies that sort of go into it, but like the way that they use social media and the way they use like Instagram, texting, and like the way like not even like the way they just show it on screen, but the way that like the characters are interacting with it. Obviously you have like the TikTok, you have the Instagram reels, and like the anxiety of like the doom scrolling, I think is like so well done in this movie.
Yeah, I have to say that was one of my favorite parts about it. And it was almost comedic to some points where I started laughing so hard. I mean, how easily people are kind of like pulled into, you know, a movement, I think is it was really done super well. Like, it was a great social commentary on kind of society during that time, which is what I appreciate a lot about the movie, because it kind of put me through a lot of different emotions. Like, I was laughing, but then I'm like Pedro Pascal's commercial is probably like the highlight of the whole entire movie. It's hilarious.
But the way that's incorporated is like literally it comes after an argument with his son, and then he's like performing with like how much he loves his son. Like that type of stuff. Like, it's a funny movie.
Yeah.
It's like dark, but like it's a dark comedy. Like, those moments do shine through. I know we were talking about it before the podcast. Like, one of the funniest movies maybe of the year is like a guy like a kid at the dinner table with his parents trying to explain to him like why why he's ashamed of his whiteness, and they're like, you're white, like what are you talking about? Because like the movie, like, to its credit, again, it's like more of a nihilistic, like pessimistic approach, is like some of the kids like who are like doing this stuff, who are like, signing on to the movement and doing these hashtags, like they're doing it for selfish reasons. Like, they're doing it to get laid. Like, it's such a like a mirror to like our current Gen Z society. And like, that's why I think a lot of like those younger audiences like are kind of turned off by it, because it's such like I wouldn't say indictment, but like it's so clearly like kind of poking fun at them. But like, I found it very like funny.
Well, and I will say, I always find it positive when a movie that's going to choose to do a commentary like this can come out and commentate equally on both sides. Usually when you get a commentary movie, you get a commentary movie that bashes one side and doesn't the other, or will completely bash one side and then say nothing about the other. So one that kind of steps back as a literal impartial third party and says, look, idiots everywhere. They're doing it for selfish reasons. Some of them don't even know what they're talking about. Lots of people are just getting into this because they're depressed, or they're anxious, or they're tired of being trapped in their homes, or because the vast majority of the rest of the public is doing it. And these, I think, are all important tones and messages that go into the movie, because you're right. It is kind of targeted at what's going on with Gen Z today, in that, if there's a social media trend that pops up nowadays, if that's the big and popular thing, it's immediately what hooks people in, and as soon as the claws are in on social media, that's what's running rampant. And so it does do a good job of bringing a lot of these things to the surface, even if it does it a bit abruptly and sort of harshly. Before we move on to anything else, we did how this stacks up against A24's slate from the past year. How do we think that this movie stands up against the rest of Ari Aster's filmography to this point?
I mean, I think it's like bottom tier. I mean, he's only made Hereditary, Midsommar, the movie you were talking about.
I was afraid, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I think this is like bottom tier. I think it's a little like below that. I do like the like chances he takes, and I do like that he wasn't afraid to make this movie, to be honest. It's kind of a ballsy movie to make like 5 years after the pandemic, which is kind of crazy. So I'll say that, like, I do give him credit for doing that, because a lot of directors, I'm sure, are avoiding this storyline for a while. So it's like, I'm happy that he was able to make this like sort of very creative, and I was more or less focused on the performances like that Joaquin was doing and Pedro Pascal was doing, and sort of everything that impacted the world itself, like in that city. So that's what I appreciate the most. But obviously, like you said, it was kind of a tough watch, and I think like it's not gonna, relate to the audiences today. So I think people are just gonna be like, oh, that movie was terrible. Like, oh my goodness. So I think it'll be like the bottom tier of like what he's produced, because I think Hereditary and Midsommar are just like absolutely amazing. Like for like top tier, like Picasso of what he's going to do in his career.
Yeah, no, I think I would say bottom tier by default, but I think just based on, I don't think he's missed on a movie. I think every movie he's done is like, I've at least liked to loved. And this is included in that sort of conversation. Again, like, you start off so great with Hereditary and Midsommar, like, again, two of like our best horror movies of the 21st century. And I admire him for like not trying to pigeonhole himself down into the horror genre. I think it's very interesting that like he went with movies like Beau Was Afraid and Eddington, which again are both very polarizing movies, very strange movies in their own right. But like again, I'm very interested to see like where he goes from here, because like, you know, like he's kind of like dipped his toes in like different sort of genres and different sort of ideas, and it's like, well, where do you go from here? Like, I think it's one of those things I've heard it said before of like season tickets for a director, and I still have season tickets for Ari Aster. Like, if he's coming out with the movie in theaters, I'll go see it. That's my thought process. So like, I'm interested to see, because it feels like now like the first couple of movies he was like really like using some influences from other like great horror genres. Now it seems like he's starting to find his own voice, and so now that he's like starting to find his own voice, like where do you go from here, and like what do you do next?
Yeah, I'm interested to see the progression of his films. You know, like you said, he started off really strong in the horror genre. He took some leap and bounds in certain areas, and then he kind of broke off into his own genre. So now that he's kind of starting to find his voice outside of the genre that we all know him for, movies that we really loved, it'll be interesting to see where he goes. I also wouldn't hate him going back with this new voice and doing something in the horror genre, but doing it with more of his own voice instead of pulling influences from some people in the horror genre. But I'm always going to be an A24 season pass holder. For me, that's, I mean, if A24 comes out with a movie, hands down, I'm ready to go see it any day of the week, because so far they have not missed on much, and they do such a good job with all of their directors, Ari Aster included, that everything that they're doing is so out of the mold of what most common studios are doing. Not that I don't need to see Glenn Powell running around shooting bullets or away from a tornado or whatever for the umpteenth time this year.
Whoa.
No.
I might want to see that.
Okay, I'm sure you do, but I like a little bit of variety.
Glenn Powell slander. No Glenn Powell slander on the pod.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's going to be some. Not a ton, but some. But I like to see those original stories. I like to see the things that, I mean, get in the theater and make you think, really pull you into the movie. And A24 does such a good job of that with every project that they do. So I'm ready for the review, and then after we review, we'll spin it forward to A24's next two projects, which I'm also really excited about. But Brett, I'll let you kick us off.
Oh,
one
really?
one through 10 for Eddington. What's your review?
I'll give this an 11 out of 10. I'm kidding. I'm gonna give it a solid like 6.8. I'm split down the middle. You know, I'm probably not going to rewatch this movie, but I was captivated and I was entertained, to say the least. I appreciate the cinematography. I appreciate the performances. I did think we kind of didn't touch on it, but it's okay. Austin Butler and Emma Watson. I always
It's Emma Stone. You're right.
It's Emma Stone.
Emma Stone, yeah.
Emma Watson is Hermione Granger. Different actress completely.
My bad. But I thought they were two wasted performances. I have to be honest. Like, I was like, Austin Butler, what are you doing, man? What are you saying in this movie? But at the same time, I get it, like, on sort of his character or whatever. But I appreciate this movie. You know, I appreciate the experience, like Mac was talking about. You go and see these movies, and you don't know what you're going into, like you're getting into. But at the same time, it's fun watch. It was, it made me angry. It made me a little sensitive, at the end of the movie theater. I did yell at somebody, but, that's just how it is sometimes. And I appreciate it, though. I'm rambling a little bit, but, 6.8. 6.8.
Yeah, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. I think, I really appreciated the big swings. I think, the way that the movie was like surprisingly able to like work with the tonality swings. Like, again, you do get, as we've talked about, like in the 3 acts of this movie, like 3 very different movies. But I was definitely like seated, like waiting for the movie to sort of wash over me and then like make my judgments. But like, as Brett said, like it makes you think, it makes you react. Like it's not a movie that you're just gonna sit and just be like, like this the whole time. Like you're gonna have some emotional reactions and swings to it. And again, I think the performances were good. I think Joaquin Phoenix did a really good job. Again, I overall, like, is it an uncomfortable experience? Sure, but I think it's one of the more provocative movies of the year, and mostly to its benefit. So 8 out of 10.
All right. Well, sorry, boys. I'm going on the lower end here. 6.4. I do like that he took some chances, but
Just failed.
yeah, I mean it's not my cup of tea, and that's fine because not every movie that you're gonna go see is gonna be yours. I wish that the side characters that he did try and put into the movie got fleshed out a bit more. If we're gonna sit for 2.5 hours, let me get to know your characters, and it's your first attempt at this, so I'm giving you a little leeway and grace. Keep getting better. Keep making movies that we're going to go see, because the fact of the matter is Mac already said he's going to see him. I'll keep going to see him. And if I'm going to see him, I'll drag Brett with me. So keep putting stuff into theaters. And we'll keep showing up to do it, because somebody's got to go to the theaters, and we're the ones to go do it. A24.
That's us, baby.
Oh yeah.
That's us. We carry the theaters, guys.
We're carrying them right on our shoulders. Speaking of carrying on shoulders, let's talk about the next A24 project, which we talked about some in the theater as the trailer was going off, which is Dwayne Johnson's next movie, and his first with A24. Gonna be a kind of biopic film for one of the most famous UFC fighters in all of history, also starring Emily Blunt, and gonna be a look at his fighting career, his life, but not so much the traditional fighting movie, and more a look from, you'd almost say, an A24 side of things. The brutal behind the scenes, the emotional weight, the struggles and other things that he went through the course of his fighting career. What are our thoughts on that upcoming project?
All right. I mean, listen. I'm the MMA guy here, so I'll take care of this.
Okay, all right, hold on now.
But no, I do appreciate Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson doing a performance like this. Now, I do think he's gonna do this character justice. I mean, this is truly a sad story, but I'm interested to see sort of like the personal side that they go and they dive into this character, and I think they're gonna hit it completely on point. I think Emily Blunt is gonna, really kill this performance. I kind of turn to you and I'm like, okay, listen, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a decent actor, but like, this is kind of out of his comfort zone. This is definitely him trying to get an Oscar. Let's be real here. But I think she's going to carry this movie. I think she's going to bring an emotional side to the story that's going to be really make Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson give everything for this role. And I think it's going to be an awesome story. I'm really excited about it. I love that A24 is kind of diving into sort of these biopics and also like these emotional stories, because, I dig a sad movie every once in a while. I ain't going to lie. Like, I like it. And at the end of the day, if you can pull my heartstrings with
Espresso,
especially
depresso,
in MMA,
Brett vibes.
Whoa. But at the same time, I do appreciate that they're doing like biopics and stuff, and I think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is going to kill this performance. I think he's going to get nominated, okay? I know that's crazy to say, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson getting nominated for an Oscar, but listen, I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to pull it off. I think he's going to do this character justice. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I would say I do respect, again, we talked about big swings. This is like a really, truly big swing for A24 for so many reasons. And I'm hoping it works out, because again, like, I think there have been performances in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's career that like I've admired and like show that he's actually a good actor. It's just unfortunate that he kind of feels like the need to pigeonhole himself to a lot of these like building CGI blockbusters throughout his career, which is kind of, sort of knocked him down a peg, and it's been tough for people to take him seriously. So I think him, being in a movie like this, like really like using his own experience in the wrestling game and hopefully channeling it into a movie like this is going to hopefully, you're going to see that sort of viscerality in the performance. I mean, Emily Blunt, has done really well, and I'm interested to see how this character is written because, we've had this issue in the past of boxing movies with like the wife of the boxer, the girlfriend of the boxer, famously made fun of on SNL. But Emily Blunt, even in a role like Oppenheimer, like she held her own in a role that many other actresses would kind of fall under the weight of like wife of prodigy, wife of genius type of thing. And there's also the angle to this movie where Benny Safdie this is his first movie outside of, his partnership with his brother Josh. And so it's like really getting to see him like spread his own wings. It was funny. We didn't bring this up with Eddington before. I don't know if you guys had saw The Curse. Either you guys see The Curse on Showtime?
I did not.
No, I did not. No, I have not.
So funny enough, it's another New Mexico related story which is a little bit more surrealist that stars Emma Stone. I highly recommend it if you're looking for like a really good, not wasted Emma Stone performance. It's very good. Nathan Fielder's in it too, if you guys like Nathan Fielder. But Benny Safdie directed a couple episodes of that, so like that was a little bit of him like starting to like spread his wings. But like the fact that this is his first like feature film. And, the Safdie brothers now, as we talked about with Uncut Gems and Good Time, like there's that brings a lot of notoriety now. So there's a lot of expectations. Now Josh has his own movie, Marty Supreme, with Timothée Chalamet. Again, another biopic about like a famous ping pong player. Like both movies that are like in the awards conversation. So like A24, I know we already have the win with Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like this is A24's time to like try and like keep pushing themselves into the awards conversation and like move themselves up among the best of the best.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, good for Timothée Chalamet, the man everybody, or mostly me, because I'm a Boston fan, loves to hate around our office. Put him in way too many highlights. Man doesn't belong anywhere near a basketball highlight. Yeah, there we go. See, yeah, knew it was going to sneak in there. I'm excited about both. And it's going to be really interesting to see the Safdie brothers do their own separate projects for their, debuts of their career on their own. I think that's going to be a really exciting thing. And I hope that they're as good separate as they are together. My biggest gripe, and I've told Brett this before with Dwayne Johnson being cast, is that he and Kerr are almost the same age now. And Dwayne Johnson is supposed to be playing a young Kerr. The other big gripe that I have with the movie is the fact that they're using current MMA stars to play the young versions of themselves. And I don't totally love that either. And there's obviously technology to make them look a bit younger.
I think it'll bring it.
Hopefully it brings some authenticity to the characters and they're able to,
Great word.
Bring some of their own experience and make it feel a little bit more like you're actually living in that world. But I'm excited about both projects, and we haven't gotten a good visceral UFC story ever. I mean, the closest we came was Warrior with Tom Hardy.
I was going to say.
No.
Good,
it was a good
call.
one. But this is also the science teacher who decided he was going to, after years and years, go up against the Marine who went AWOL. It's not, so it's UFC-esque, but this is...
So here comes the boom, all right? No, here comes the boom.
Okay, fine.
I
here
cried
comes
during Warrior. So don't be trashing Warrior right now.
I love the Warrior, but let's not call it an authentic UFC story, okay? Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier were never science teachers, all right? They've been training for this their entire lives. And again, I love Warrior. Might watch it tonight because it's such a good film, and now that I'm talking about it, I do kind of want to watch it. But it's not an authentic UFC story. This is going to be an authentic UFC story from the beginning of the time of UFC. It's birth, and it's also one of the most storied UFC fighters in history. He just recently got inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, and his story is just incredible. So if they do a great job with it, it should win awards. It should. And Emily Blunt, being who she is and how she played in Oppenheimer and other projects that she's done before, that's not her only good one, but it is the most recent big standout performance. She has the opportunity to come in and make both characters extremely dynamic, and I hope that it's really great. And, you know, I like Timothée Chalamet as an actor for as much trouble as I give him about showing up to Knicks games. And that could also be a really great story. And to have both of those up for awards at the end of the season would be an awesome thing to see, and a great boost for A24, which is a studio that is gaining more and more recognition, as it should. So I'm really excited about both projects, and I hope that they both turn out as well as we're hoping them to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the gold standard they already kind of set for a sports movie, which is Iron Claw. Like that movie, like when you talk about biopic, you talk about sports movie.
Iron Claw was
like
great.
That movie like set the standard, man. So I'm hoping it's in that sort of same ilk, because you know, just that's the kind of movie that's like it's tough to watch, but it's also like it's very enthralling and like emotionally resonant. I'm expecting good things from these guys.
Well, and I like that it's a view
I'm hyped
of
about it.
The UFC fighters from behind the curtain. We get to see the hype videos. We get to see them, you know, doing the fun parts of training. But I mean, the UFC just started doing the videos where you're seeing them cut weight when they're 6 pounds over 2 weeks before they're supposed to make weight. I mean, you're just starting to see behind the curtain of some of the really difficult parts of being a fighter as a profession. And Kerr being one of those guys who was doing it before they had a bunch of this technology and science around.
The time is the
huge.
timeliness of it is going to be good. It's going to be good.
I'm super excited.
Sorry to like cut you off there, but like that's such a great point. Like the fact that this was like the early stage UFC where they were basically trying to push this promotion to a point where like now you're seeing the Conor McGregors, the Dustin Poiriers, the Ilia Topuries. I mean, listen, it was a beautiful time. It was a beautiful time of the promotion, and to be honest, these people need to be celebrated, but like also have their stories told because of what they went through. I mean, you already kind of get a little bit of the trailer with it. Like talking about sort of taking the pain medication and stuff like that, and just sort of going on to the next fight and the next fight and putting your body through some of the worst things you can possibly put your body through. I mean, massive respect to everyone, you know, that goes through that, but I'm really excited to see this story told, and I'm glad A24 grabbed it because I was kind of nervous when they announced it, but the fact that A24 is making it gives me all the confidence in the world. I'll go see it. I'll buy a ticket.
Yeah, we'll definitely be showing up, and since we're going to be doing a little UFC plug here, not sponsors, although UFC, wink wink, we love the UFC. So Poirier, congrats on your retirement, sir. Sorry to see you hang up the gloves, but
I cried.
We were
So,
devastated, and it was amazing. And oh my gosh, A24, like wait 5 years and then do the Poirier biopic, because I would go see that in a heartbeat. Sign me up. I'll see it 5 times in theaters. But speaking of other things that are coming in theaters that we're going to be doing earlier than normal, another superhero movie is just around the corner. And by just around the corner, I mean 2 days from now, Fantastic Four is going to be in theaters. And as per usual, the internet spoilers will probably not wait long enough for me and Brett to see it till next Wednesday. So we are going to be seeing it this Friday. So check back on Saturday, Sunday at the latest, you know, if we're really bogged down, if you will. And we'll see how Fantastic Four turns out to be. Brett is overhyped. I am underhyped.
Oh, I'm hyped.
And we'll see which one of us is more appropriately hyped for the movie when it comes out for yet another Pedro Pascal pick. Yes, Brett, go ahead.
Listen, I'm hyped about Fantastic Four, and this is what we need for the superhero franchises. And we will get Mac's opinion on it, and we will say it on the podcast. He probably won't be a part of it because I'll be screaming the whole entire time. But at the end of the day, listen, the DC, I'm glad you got your footing, but it's about time. But listen, Thunderbolts was a great movie, and we're about to go back to back here. So you better keep up. That's all I'm saying. Shout out to the DC for getting Superman right. Good on them. But you got a lot of work to do because the Marvel has been an established franchise, and they're going to do great. So let's get it.
Let's talk about the fact really quickly before I let Matt go, and I will let Matt go. DC has promised 2 live action films, 2 animated films, and 2 live action TV shows and 2 animated TV shows a year for the next 4 years. Marvel doesn't have another film coming out till next December. So I hear you, and I want this movie to be good, and I want Marvel to do well, but listen, it's not Marvel that needs to play catch up. Okay, DC has them outbeat 8-1 right now. Marvel's got to start catching up.
Whatever.
You can't do 8-1 projects and hope to keep up. Sorry, Bob.
We'll see. We'll see. I don't know, man. I as someone who's kind of fallen off the Marvel train a little bit, I want Fantastic Four to be good. I don't know if it's like if it's good that like I'll completely be all back in on like the Secret Wars and the Doomsday and stuff, but like it's good to have good superhero movies. It's good to have a little competition. It's good to have like these good standalone stories. So like I'm rooting for it. Because who wants to sit through another bad Fantastic Four movie?
Nobody. We've sat through too many before. Stick around too, because sometime in the near future, we're also going to talk about the future of Thor, which was announced, and the big news that came out of Secret Wars. But for now, thanks for hanging around and listening to 3 fake Cine-Files talk about yet another movie. Brett, you want to take us out?
Thanks, lads. Enjoy your day. Be happy. And have a good day.